Raila Odinga, from the journalist point of perspective, was a newsmaker. For news to be complete, we need to hear what Raila Odinga has spoken. We need to opposition. The opposition was not opposition with Raila Odinga. So there's no way you can say we are having a complete news or we are having a what news without having the side of Raila Odinga.
It was a pleasure covering Baba for those years that I have been a journalist, and his exit will really change the political landscape.
The 15th of October 2025 started off like a normal day in the newsroom. It quickly turned into one of the biggest news events I've covered in my profession and career as a journalist.
On 14th of October, we had a town hall meeting in Kisumu at the Tomboya Labour College discussing elimu mashinani, the status of education in Kisumu County, but also in the country. So we were done on that night, just before 9 p.m. And we retired for the night. The agreement was that the following day, because of the fatigue of the day, we'll have a late morning. So we wake up at about 10 a.m. But then about just a few minutes before 8 a.m., I started seeing some few messages on the newsroom platforms on WhatsApp. People saying something major has happened. I go online and I find some of the ODM members and supporters saying, pray for us, people putting emojis with tears. So I wondered what exactly is happening.
We started hearing about the possibility that Raila Odinga had passed on, but it hadn't been confirmed yet.
I checked with colleague journalists, the likes of Faiza, Jamila, Ayub, and each of them was confirming that indeed he has died. But then I also called my boss, Linus, and Masio Buru. So after speaking to Masio Buru, I was so certain that this is it.
So we normally have our briefing meetings in the morning from around 8:30, 9:30. Just plan the day ahead. So while the meeting was going on, there was a flurry of activity, the senior editors just trying to confirm whether this is true or not. And that changed the mood instantly in the newsroom. All the stories we had planned on doing that day instantly took a back burner, and we went into that mode of we are actually covering a very huge event.
I asked Mercy, so now what do we do? Her first call was that you guys need to get out of Kisumu as quickly as possible, because as soon as this news is confirmed, then the town will be impassable, obviously because of the mourning that would ensue. But then part of me was feeling like we are the heart of the story. So we are running to the airport to fly out, and then what? So I made a few calls, spoke to colleagues, and we agreed that the best thing to do is to stay there, make our way to Bondo.
We want to wait for the government to announce officially about the departure of our hero, Raila Odinga, which the announcement was done around 1 p.m. At around 2:30, I had a call from the office, where are you? I told them I'm around. The question I was asked, is your passport ready? Do you have a valid passport? I said yes. Your flight is at 4 p.m. to India.
I got the news when I was in the streets walking. I saw many women and people wailing. Then I thought what was happening. Then I asked someone, then he told me that Raila had passed.
At first, I didn't even take it seriously until the time I realized that, yes, it's true, yeah.
Let me say, the death of Raila Odinga was a shocker to many journalists. And I think we're still in that mood where we are yet to fully comprehend that this happened, and that we're talking about Raila in the past.
By this time it was after 10 a.m. Citizen TV had broken the news, and now everyone was on the streets. Those riding borders, those walking, those with their motor vehicles, and every person was holding or carrying a twig. So we started wondering, what does this signify? Of course, we had some people in our vehicle who would understand what that means. So we had to stop on the wayside and find the tree branches to put on our vehicle.
It was sad for everyone, you could see even the cameramen or The sound technician also crying. Everyone was just emotional. It was not easy for us.
Aside from the magnitude of that news event, it was also quite emotional, if I may say so, because most of the people in the newsroom have covered this man for a number of years. So having to come with the reality that now you have to cover him in this state was something that shook many people.
In a case, situation like that, you have to call even those who are off duty, and you have to make sure that your team are okay.
So what I did when I was told your flight is at 4 p.m., I had to get a driver from the office, and I want to thank our driver, Mr. Kirumba. He really assisted me because he had to drive me all the way to Kitengela to pick my passport, to pick my laptop, and get ready to the airport before 4 p.m. We went, drive at very super speed. I picked my laptop, I picked my passport, then we went to the airport.
Immediately, we arrived at Raila's Opodo home. It was chaos because so many people were there.
And there we found a few other colleague journalists from other media houses. One of them had an OB at the outside broadcasting van, but it was still closed. So we wondered why. At this point, we need to go live because the continuous coverage has already started with the breaking of the news in studio.
Crowds were coming to us, asking us, how did citizen arrive here? And the news has just been announced that Raila's died. So guys were hanging in our cars. We couldn't even come out of the car. It was chaos everywhere. So to them, it was very rough for us to set up.
But you have something called Ilio Smart, where you can go live from your phone. And that's what we used with my cameraman, Eric Center. So we went live to describe what you could see. A few questions from studio, just to establish that indeed we are now at the Opoda farm in Bondo. We got to a point that now we need to speak to the mourners themselves. So some two older persons came, a man and a woman. Then at some point, the young people now started saying, no, you need to give us a chance to speak. So I addressed them and I told them, no, look, I tried to speak to you. All of you want to speak at the same time. We cannot speak. So what you're going to do, give me 3 people, 2 gentlemen, 1 lady, then you can speak to you. I think it was a team from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology. And they agreed. So we stepped down, we came and spoke to the 3 of them. They shared their condolences, they mourned Raila Odinga. The doors were closed at the Opoda farm itself. We were told that up until a family member comes and informs that Raila Odinga has passed, the doors cannot be opened.
The flight was 6 hours to Mumbai. We reached at the Mumbai airport. The mood was so tense. Everybody was just, when you were traveling, if you compare the mood when you were going to Mumbai and when you were coming back from Mumbai, the mood when you were going was not so much tense the way when you were coming back. Because, the news came, nobody believed Raila's died. Some of us were like, it's like it's a movie, it's not really, just comfort yourself, it's not real. Until we went to the Mumbai, the first thing we found, the body was ready. The security guard, the security bodyguard for Raila Morris Ogeto was there, just guarding around the bodies next to the car, which was the vehicle which was carrying the casket of the Honorable Raila Odinga. And that's when the time most of us it as and but now Raila is no more, because now we have seen it's really the guys in the casket, and everybody was when you are so you can try to control yourself so much, so you have to roll down tears a little bit, some seconds, and then you gather yourself, then you just remember now, apart from you coming here, you have to give the news back to the viewers. The military was not willing for us to go to the cargo side where we are loading the body, but we insisted. But for our viewers, we need to have that picture of the body being taken to the plane. So then we just witnessed, we filmed how the body was being loaded to the plane. And remember, in that plane, there was no any other cargo. On passenger cargos, were just on the body of Raila Odinga was there. And I want to thank our captain, the captain of the pilot who flew the Raila. While we were back, when we just touched the Kenyan airspace, the Kenyan soil, that's when she announced that now we have changed the plane from KQ 00 KQ this and this to Laos 001. And you can even hear the mood, the tone in which she was announcing was just a somber, very, very low tone. And that's when most of the passengers, even the mood changed. People are just like, now we are almost touching down. So it was an experience, which was a mixed experience. You feel bad if you have lost our hero, but then you have to remember, you have to reconnect to yourself and remember you are there to give the news. So you have to think as a newsmaker, because everybody, you are the only one that has been sent from Kenya. Everybody is depending on you.
Day 2, we woke up and we decided we need now to establish what else happens. On that day, you remember that that's the day that the body was arriving from India. So that's why we went and saw where the family gravesite is, where Raila's mom, Mary Ajuma Odhiambo, or is it Odhiambo, is buried, and the entire family, including Raila's son, Fidel Castro Odinga. And it was now starting to talk to us. At that time, you remember there was information that he had indicated he wanted to be buried next to the mom. So we wanted to know, if that's the case, where would that be?
I was tasked to cover Baba from the airport when his body was touching down from India all the way to Bondo. So the first day I woke up, I was at the airport by 5:30 a.m. We got there, we found so many people wailing outside the gate, and when we got to when the body was touching down, that was when the reality dawned on us that truly Baba had passed on.
Around 10:30, 11, that's when we saw the events that were happening at JKIA, and one of our news editors told me that there were change of plans, because we already had teams. We had teams we had teams at JKIA, we had another team at Lee Funeral, we had a team in Parliament, and because of the number of people who had turned out at JKIA, and also the crowd that had gathered at Parliament, there was a decision that the body viewing now moves to Kasarani Stadium.
It took us like almost 2 hours, 2 hours 30 minutes to leave the airport from the VIP area to the gate. It took 2 hours at a distance of normally like two minutes or so when you're driving. It showed how many those people are there. And when we got to the expressway, hapo ndo tulianza kupatana na goons sasa. Some actually wanted to steal from us, but we negotiated with them. We told them, okay, when you steal this thing, you might really struggle getting some market for it. Why can't we buy it back? And that's what we did.
I was deployed to Kasarani Stadium. I went there at around 11. That's when we got to Kasarani. The gate we used, when we got to that particular gate, what I remember was this heavy presence of security officers. There were police lorries, police vans, and there were very many police officers. When we introduced ourselves, they allowed us in. So from that particular point, let me say the number of people were streaming in. There were so many of them.
The helicopter was coming to ask these people to let the vehicle move. And it used to flow very, very low. At some point, people were throwing stones at it because they were trying to tell them we are really running out of time. Because according to the program, the body was supposed to have been at the Lee Funeral Home by 12 p.m. Actually, around 12 p.m. Before the viewing of the body in Parliament. So by 1, we were still at the expressway. It got to a point where the military officers had to alight from that gun carriage, the one that was carrying Raila's body, to push people out of the way. And when they got to some point, they had to speed all the way to get that chance. But the chopper actually wanted to airlift that body at some point. It came so low, there were negotiations to have that, but the mourners and the supporters of Baba could not have any of that.
As the crowd was building up, I remember there were police officers, senior police officers who were basically trying to tell their teams to ensure that guys do not access the middle of the pitch, and there were preparations where when the casket comes, where they'll do all this.
So we had our cameras live throughout, and it was the camera persons were on top of the vehicles. We were also on other vehicles, also assisting them.
Tukiwa pale, umati unazidi kuingia, umati unazidi kujaa. Kwa hivyo kakua ile hali ya tusubiri kwanza, tukaegesha gari pale kando, tukasubiri. Let me say we made a decision. As time was moving, we realized time is moving, and what is happening here is what we need to show. So at this particular time, even as we are monitoring, the convoy was making its way along Thika Road and they accessed Kasarani Stadium. And I think the crowd realized that the body was now within the vicinity of Kasarani Stadium. It was so bad because the people were like throwing chairs at the security guys who were trying to put like a shield, a human shield, to ensure that they do not access that particular area. And so it is at this particular time when you had the gunshots.
That point, I honestly don't know what happened, but I just had tra, 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 tra. I don't know for how long it took, like I think 5 minutes or something. It went a little longer. And at some moment, I just lost vision. I think it took about 2 minutes there about. Then Kirui would come back to and was like, hey guys, why are you here? What's happening? And I told Kirui, didn't you just see what happened? And Kirui was like, I saw it. Actually, I just got into a confrontation with the police officers. Honestly, on that day, I didn't expect it to turn out ugly as it turned. But when we got back to confirm what the sound was all about and the chaos, it was sad to see that people were lying down, not as those injured, but actually whatever we had was actually gunshots and people were dead.
We had gunshots, tear gas, and also us who were like doing our work. You know, we had to take like a pause. The cameras were left running, but even the camera crew and the whole OB crew, they had to like retreat and look for a safe place, so that we are also able to know what's happening, and we're also not injured in the process. When we took cover for a few minutes, is now when we were able to see what was happening. There was someone who was lying down in the middle of the pitch, and there were like security officers surrounding that person. And at this particular time, the stadium, which was now full, was like quarter full, because most of those guys who were inside when the shooting started and the tear gas and all that, they had to find their way out.
At some point, you see, I always say, before you become a journalist, you're first a human being. I felt like there was some kind of shiver. I couldn't even contain myself. And I told Karuga, you know, in as much as we want to cover this event, in as much as we want people to see what's happening here, I think the first thing we are going to do is to take safety as our precautionary measure.
So there were like 2 police vans which came and picked the man who was lying inside the pitch, who was, there were reports of he had been hit. At that particular time, we were not sure if it is a tear gas or he had been hit by a bullet.
We tried really hard to go and see whoever was lying down there. I remember seeing NYS, kinda walimzunguka, and police were moving here and there, police vehicles trying to stream in and try come close to the body to pick it up. But people grew a little of, they really didn't appreciate that. They wanted the media to confirm who was shot before the police could take the body out.
You see, when you're in a chaotic environment as a journalist, what comes first is your security. And we're even trying to get like police officers to come and maybe just be part of our protection near the OB van. But because they were also overwhelmed because of the number of crowd that was inside the stadium, and also those who were outside, and the chaos that was there. And you could find that we talk to the young people. You know, in that group where there's very many young people who are so agitated, you have to like talk to like, you look for like at least a group of like 5 or 10 of them who you think you can talk to and tell them, hey, here we are trying to do our work. kindly assist us in terms of just getting your own security, so that in case it's too chaotic, they do not destroy the kind of equipments we are using to do our work as journalists.
I tell you, it was a moment of like 5 minutes, but a lot erupted in Kasarani on that day that I think will just impact my mind. I don't talk about just the glass shatter. I talk about the people who are injured, those who were cut by the glass, wenye walivunjika miguu, those who have never experienced something so chaotic as such, the stampede, and it was just police everywhere. So at some point, people lost the direction. And when we finally made it out, I think at some point I was like, I think we are very safe, because when we went to find somewhere safe to be at as we waited for the chaos to cool down, we found ourselves next to, it was next to the VVIP entrance at Kasarani. And I remember telling Kiri, I think this place is so safe, we can now come down and see what's happening in other places. So when we got out, I remember somebody coming for me, grabbed him by the neck with my tag and telling me, hey, you young lady, come here. I want you to see what the police has done in Kasarani. And I was like, okay, hold on a minute, we've seen the body. Okay, we didn't see the bodies, we were very far. But now I was just trying not to get myself between the people and the police and that confrontation. And they just insisted, you come here. I remember I wore my press tag. So I just followed them and went to the vehicle, the police vehicle that was just parked at the entrance. And I saw a dead body, a man lying down, shot, I think I can say point blank at his chest. And one question I asked myself is, could they not have done it better? You see, this is someone, this was not shot out of a stray bullet. This is something aimed. This is something that was targeted. And in as much as I always think I am as a journalist that I'm strong enough to cover such incidences, I think for a moment I broke down and I just said, no, I don't want to see this. I don't want to do this. I remember calling on Kirui and telling Kirui, you see, Kirui, it's already 5 guys. I think it's time we leave this place and just let the other team pick it up from here. For a minute, we took silence in our vehicle and we couldn't, nobody could say anything. It shut the camera person, it shut fellow reporters. I was there, I myself, with Gishimo Vinoro and Jimmy Mbogo, and I just said, I don't think it was supposed to go that way. I don't think that was the best remembrance I could have of Baba Raila Odinga. People dying, trying just to see his body. Yeah.
So there is a day, I don't know if it was day 2 or day 3, when Oburu Oginga now arrived at the home. Day 3, yeah. And came and made the announcement, communicated to the people that were there, members of the Council of Elders of the Luo community, including, I think, Kero was there. And that communication is significant because, like we were told, is that he has brought the cry home, and our mourners are free to come in and condole with the family that has lost their loved one. At Kangoka Jaramogi, work was going on. The digging of the grave, preparation of the final resting place of Raila Odinga, the difficult task that the young or middle-aged men that were there, they had to do, having to deal with the terrain, the very hard rock that was down there. And interesting enough, when people saw it on TV of how they were having to use chisels and mallets and mattocks as well, someone was suggesting, I mean, why don't you just use a compressor or a driller to make the work easy? And I think it's because of that. Eventually I got a call from Charles Owino, former spokesperson of the police service, and also helping the national government in communication matters. He called me and told me that I brought in a driller, now we're getting there. Because it took, the digging was across 2 days, from day 1 to the second day, and it was still a difficult task for them to execute. So yeah, we're able to see those preparations. But in preparing that gravesite, it went up until the day of the funeral, hours of the morning. That's when they were able to conclude the preparations. But also, you could feel the mourning environment hanging around, should I call it tension, not just at Opodo Farm, but even on the streets, everywhere people converged, they were at it. Whether you were driving towards Kangoka Jaramogi, you'd feel it. And I think the biggest moment was when the body eventually arrived in Bondo, because first, initially we were told that the intention was that the body would be taken straight to the home of Raila Odinga. But eventually the decision was take it to the viewing area. So people going to view the body on that side was also a task, and the security officers had to do so much work. Of course, where the body lay, you had the KDF officers, then you have police officers, NYS officers, or should I say recruits, prison service, whoever, different personnel, manning and ensuring security there. And I saw people saying that the people viewing the body are using what you call view once because of moving so fast. And it had to be so, because the crowd that was there, I mean, those are so many people, to manage them and make sure that every person gets an opportunity. I got my opportunity to view the body and to pay my last respects. And shortly after that, then now you see people who had gotten a view once were now starting to come back to the queue. But then the security officers noticed and told them, no, we know what you guys are doing. You're getting a second viewing. And they had now to close it. So I was there, even at the point that the casket was closed, and now moved to the home. And that's the moment the body got to the home, to the homestead, rather. And I saw various members of the family, the extended family, now the reality dawning on them. And most of them were just weeping, in, of course, having to process what was going on. Well, the reality of the moment was that, yes, the country was in mourning. Very emotional pictures that we saw, whether it's in Nairobi, on the streets, in Bondo, in Siaya, in Kisumu, we saw it. But then you call yourself for a quick meeting and realize you're here at the center of history. You're here as the only link that Kenyans have to what's happening on that end of things. And so you realize, yes, you may be processing your own sorrow, but you have a duty to serve the audience, to show them that which they can't without you. And so you find a way of having to deal with the emotions aside from what has happened. Because again, whether you love him or you don't, this is a human being. People have lost. This is a question of humanity. But then again, perhaps the best honor for a journalist is to tell that story in the best way that you can. So you can process your emotions, but while you are on air, you have to do what's honorable, linking the viewer to what's happening on the ground. And I think that was best told through allowing the viewer to experience it for themselves.
What I can say is that he was a very approachable person, and he was a good newsmaker. He would give you bites, sound bites, as we trade in sound bites, especially for TV. So he was quite good at that. He was very eloquent, whether it was in Kiswahili, whether it was in English, whether it was in his native Luo. He could speak at least bits and bits of very many languages across Kenya. He would go to Luya land and he would address the Luyas in Luya. He would go to Kikuyu and greet them in their language, in Maasai. So he was very adept at getting in touch with the people. They stuck with me, those memories. So it was challenging, both from a professional point of view and personal interactions with the man that Raila was. So it was one of the toughest assignments I have had to do. But at the end of the day, it is one that had to be done nonetheless.
It was very hard for me because it was emotional, because I had attachment to Raila also. Then I was there. So imagine seeing people crying, you also crying, or you are working on location. It was very difficult for me.
After every interview, Raila will sit down with the journalists and the crew. One table, you eat, and Raila was telling us a lot of stories. Raila will ask you, what's your name? After telling you, where do you come from? He will tell you everything about your area and the leaders who are in that area. And that he was a very, very good storyteller. And the memory, the guy was, Jacom was a wonderful man.
Raila Odinga, from the journalist point of perspective, was a newsmaker. From us journalists, for news to be complete, we need to hear what Raila Odinga has spoken. We need to opposition. The opposition was not opposition with Raila Odinga. So there's no way you can say we are having a complete news, or we are having a what news without having the side of Raila Odinga.
I think people should remember Raila as a person who was just Baba. someone who could listen. I remember a time when I actually covered his last assignment before he passed on. It was on 22nd of September 2025, just I think 3 weeks ago. And you could ask Raila a question that some of these people are not very comfortable with, but he will still go on and answer it. He would give you the answer. I don't know whether the answer would have been satisfactory, but he would answer it. But he was that person who was just able to listen to what other people are saying, and also giving a chance to people to also express themselves.
I will remember him for his commitment to the cause, whichever cause it was that he had set his sights on, he was committed to it. I would remember him for being, for lack of a better word, astute in the sense that, and pragmatic also, in the sense that there's the ideal situation that you want something to be, but then there's a real situation. And most of the times, especially when the country was going through a lot of political upheavals, he became very pragmatic. He had, if a handshake had to be made, he made it for the sake of the country. And his love for Kenya generally. Looking back now when he was replaying the clips of things he used to say, and it becomes very evident that Kenya was at the top of his priority.
I realized that Baba was more powerful in death than in life. I realized that he had more supporters even after passing on. And we saw that all the way to Jomo Kenyatta Mamboleo Stadium in Kisumu, and even in Bondo to his gravesite at Kango Kajaramogi. And you could see these people. This was someone, as the president said, he was the people's president. And you could feel the power, the unofficial power of Raila Odinga, even in his death, as these people mourned him and turned up in those numbers to escort him. And the consistency they had with him in life was also evident even in his death.
I think what we really need to do is just to pick what the characters of real Raila Odinga, resilience, perseverance, forgiving heart, So I think those are some of the things that personally I learned that however I might have a problem with anybody, that does not mean that that person is a devil. We were born with the difference between human being and animal is a capacity to reason, and knowing that the difference in opinion does not mean you are my enemy.
The sort of things, the sort of work we do today, that you can actually analyze public policy and using logic, express yourself, ask questions. I think this is the product of the work that Raila Odinga did all those years, raising questions. Many may call him a troublemaker, especially for those that were managing government affairs. But I think that persistence is what has yielded to the media freedom that we have today. Because not many that run governments, both national and county, would want a strong media, a critical media. But I think largely because Raila Odinga lived, we owe it to him. And I told someone that many will say that journalists did a very good job in paying tribute to Raila Odinga or even covering his funeral. I think Raila Odinga wrote his own story, and the journalists that were covering it was simply delivering that story to the audiences.
My last word is that we're praying that Raila's soul will get eternal rest, and for what he fought for, we'll try and keep it even in this media industry. We'll try to help people where we can, talk about the rights. If they're being trampled on, we'll highlight the problems of the society and the values that Raila had of one Kenya, one unity. That's what we're going to spread, and we spread love to all our viewers.
It was a pleasure covering Baba for those years that I have been a journalist, and his exit will really change the political landscape. His last statement will be like the Bible. People will have different interpretation of what he said in his last address, because he admonished those people who were supporting the government and also praised them he also admonished those who did not support the government and also praised them as well. So that thing will continue post how long, I don't know how long.